people think like it's their fault. But what if I'm Joe Smith chasing entrepreneurship? I want to be, what if I want to be like you? I want to be a successful influencer. You're going through your whole workout thinking, oh shoot, I can't work out anymore.
What are the most intense injuries that you've seen?
Do you not feel this moon crater of a knot here that's pressing on the radial nerve? She started crying. And this was early on in my practice too. So I said, oh man, I hope I didn't offend her.
So people, I had the pleasure of speaking with a goat himself.
Thank you. Thanks.
Dr. Michael DellaCorte.
It's a pleasure to be here now. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Did I say that right?
DellaCorte.
DellaCorte.
Yes.
Okay, DellaCorte. Totally not right.
It's okay.
Well, Dr. Michael is, I'd say he's like a goat of the fitness industry. He's been doing some good work for some good people in the fitness industry for a minute now.
It's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
I'm one of those lucky souls, so I have to.
It's a pleasure to do. It's a pleasure to serve. Especially pleasure to have met you. You know, I remember my friend would send me videos of your TikToks at EOS. And now it's crazy how the world works, you know?
Yeah.
How God brings people together.
Yeah.
Like now I'm sitting here on your podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
Really cool.
It's super,
really
super
beautiful.
Cool. Right. I would have never guessed I met a lot of the people that became some of my closest friends simply just from being on social media.
That's wonderful,
It's crazy
isn't
to
it?
think. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's not something I would have ever imagined. Like a lot of people even just have these, what is it? These negative opinions over like say like dating apps or anything like that. But it just seems like anything that comes to like social media or places where people connect online is just, to me, seems just more valuable than I can even comprehend or I can even express.
I agree. I have friends that met on dating apps. They're married now, happily married, kids. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And then imagine if we didn't even have any of these. Like none of us might ever even meet each other.
I see. Yeah. Social media is how I met my mentors. Everything. Social media changed my life.
Your mentors like what?
In my field, mentors in life, in my field. Everybody came into my life through social media.
Gotcha. I see. So can you explain a little bit to the audience about what you do? A little bit about what you do?
I'd be happy to.
You do?
I'm a sports chiropractor in Glendale, and I treat athletes, help them get out of pain, get back to doing what they love to do. It's truly a pleasure to do so. I've met so many wonderful people. Treat everything from sciatica to carpal tunnel, shoulder pain, back pain. See a lot of people that come in from the gym injuries.
Those motherfucking gym injuries.
Yeah, I do. I specialize in active release technique. It's a soft tissue technique, muscles, tendons, fascia, ligaments, things like that. I do some of the traditional chiropractic too. Adjustments.
Active release technique?
Active
release
technique.
technique.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's abbreviated ART. It's a really nice soft tissue.
What does that mean exactly? Active release technique?
It's just what they call the technique. There's many different techniques out there that use different tools. Some use their elbows, some use the scraping tools like Graston, but active release technique, it's all with your hands. And that's just what the founder, Dr. Mike Leahy, termed it.
Okay, cool. So what, who all have you worked with? I guess honestly, just who all in the fitness industry have you worked with? Because I'm sure people are curious.
Well, if you want to see, you can look on my Instagram. I don't want to go and say them just blatantly, but if they want to see, they can look on my Instagram. What I can say is I work with some wonderful people, yourself included, from all different walks of the fitness industry, company owners, and it's a pleasure to do so, you know, because you see these companies online just taking off, and they're bringing such beautiful light to working out and things like that. So it's a pleasure to help those people that are motivating millions and millions of people out there.
Yeah. Well, I want to say it anyways, but Dr. Michael I didn't actually know him until I was working out with Lex Little and I was trying to hit like a PR on 140s on dumbbell press. Not sure why I was doing this, but literally just like the second rep in, I was even going real slow, like real slow. And then I made sure to go back up slowly because I've literally incurred shoulder impingement in myself 1,000 times just from doing variations of bench press and trying to PR on it. And still on the way back up, I heard like a click, and then all of a sudden, sharp pain in my the right side of my chest and shoulder. I had to drop the dumbbell, which was like really, really miserable at the time because I was so excited about like starting my bulk and everything. And then so Lex immediately shot me this guy's number, and apparently he was also doing work for Bradley Martin at the time too, because we were both at the zoo, and just went straight over to him. And I swear to God, immediately the first time that you worked on me, and then you also added that tape, dude, the pain was gone within a week. It was gone within a week.
Excellent.
I was already like working back into like my normal working weight and everything, and it was crazy to me.
It's a pleasure to have served you, man, and to continue to serve you as well. Sorry, I'm sweating, guys. You're a great person. You guys have a great host here. I'm glad to have met you.
Thanks, bro.
Yes, you're welcome. Incredible feats of strength, what you guys do at the gym, by the way. Incredible.
I mean, some of these guys, these guys are pretty freaking incredible, dude. I don't know about me, but every time I see like Lex and Brad shooting up weight, I want to quit bodybuilding and just be a powerlifter.
Use it for inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Use it for inspiration. Those guys are wonderful. Truly wonderful.
What are like the most common injuries that you've seen in like I'd say the fitness industry. I was going to say like bodybuilding and fitness, but
Sciatica, number one.
Sciatica,
number one.
Can you explain that?
Yes, absolutely. When sciatica can come many different ways. Sometimes you can get it from a bulging disc in the low back. A lot of times if you're bending over, you hear a pop and you get this pain going down, shooting down your leg. You can classify that as sciatica. It doesn't have to be a disc bulge, though. Some people get just really tight in their glutes, ends up pinching the sciatic nerve in there too. A lot of the things that I see with bodybuilders the most, male and female, is deep in the glutes. There's way more than just the glutes. There's a bunch of little hip rotators down there too. And for the most popular one that people say is the piriformis. Mm-hmm. Sciatic nerve, in some people it goes under it, some it pierces through it, some it goes over it, some it hits it in splits. But anyways, a lot of times people don't focus a lot on what they should be focusing on, which is hip stability. So you go into the gym, the warm-up is usually hit a bang or a ghost energy, swing your leg around a couple times, a couple of these, and then you're going. But you never really spend any time turning on the stabilizer muscles that we all should. Leads to injury. So think of in the glutes, if you Google these muscles, the glute medius, for example, should be a primary stabilizer of the hip. Mm-hmm. Most people, theirs is weak. So then the other deeper, smaller hip rotators try to take over. They get too tight, eventually pinches the sciatic nerve. That's probably the one I see the most, because when you think of powerlifters, bodybuilders, you think of strength, right? And you never want to think, okay, something on me is weak or not activating, things like that. That's a no-no in the bodybuilding world, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine somebody said, okay, Niall, your rear delts are weak. You might say, wait a minute. What? No, they're not. Look at them. Appearance doesn't always equate to function, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, main ones get a little bit weak. They stop activating how they should. Other smaller ones take over. Those ones pinch the nerve. And then it can be it can go down your leg. It can be just a pinpoint pain in the glutes. That's probably the most common one I see. I see a lot of shoulder impingements too, a lot of back pain, a lot of suspected hamstring injuries. People come in and say, okay, it's my hamstring. But a lot of times it's the sciatic nerve or something in the spine as well. That's another common one. Quite a few elbows inside or outside, just with curls and pull-ups and things like that. But I'd say those are the most common.
Okay.
And neck and traps.
And then neck and traps as well.
Because everybody just like this.
Yeah.
And then everybody loves to shrug.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
So can you name those again? Like list them out?
Yeah, sciatica. Let's say carpal tunnel. Let's say inner or outer elbow pain. Neck. Most people will come in and say it's their trap. A lot of times it is, but then there's more. There's more to it.
Okay.
as well.
Okay. Let's start with sciatica. So, how can someone prevent that from happening, or at least be proactive about making sure that that doesn't happen?
Okay, so 2 things right off the bat. First, think about when you're at the gym, you're moving very well, right? You're focusing on your form, on everything. What I see then is people, they execute these lifts so beautifully at the gym. They're hip hinging, they're keeping good posture, bracing the core. They get home, go to squat to the couch, and it's like this. They go to bend some. Think of if you were deadlifting at the gym, you're hip hinging, you're braced, your core is braced. Then think if you go home, you have to go move boxes. You're probably going to bend about your spine like this. Over time, that can injure the spine. That can injure the discs. You can hurt the muscles of the back. So then, if you continually do that over and over and over again at home or even at the gym, just in between sets, moving weights around, bending all over the place, it kind of does something to the discs that can make them susceptible to injury. So then what I'm saying is, if you're at home, be mindful of your posture too, not just at the gym. If you're moving boxes for your friend, you're moving couches for your friend. Use your hip hinge, right? Sit with good posture. It doesn't have to be all the time, but when you get home, don't just be sitting like this, because then you can injure the discs of the spine, and then that's one of the ways that you can get the sciatica. The other is, think of, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and he talks about the reason he meditates is because it's like priming your mind for the day. So a good warm-up specifically tailored to each person at the gym is my second recommendation. Because then when Tony says meditation is like priming your mind for the day ahead, think of a good warm-up as priming the muscles that you're going to use in this upcoming session for their work, right? So get the glutes going, get the rotator cuff going if you're hitting shoulders. I personally like to go the whole, my warm-up includes everything, but it's kind of specifically tailored to me. And then if someone comes in with a shoulder injury, we try and say, okay, now, because the typical thing is, to go off track for a second, you come in, hurt your shoulder, most are going to say, oh, just rest it, right? I'm not a fan of that. I'm into training around the injury, trying to get better as fast as possible.
Right.
But then let's say shoulder problem, right? We're going to look at things based on what caused that issue for you, see if we can treat them in office, and then send you away with something that primes the rotator cuff. Is it okay if I talk about yours?
Yeah, dude. So, absolutely.
For instance, with him, he's pressing, he got something called shoulder impingement syndrome. And what you can think of is, with him, eventually, pec, front delt, things like that, they get worked so much as a bodybuilder, eventually they get really tight and they start doing the job of other things in the shoulder too. So for yours, something happened underneath the arm with a muscle called subscapularis. That's particularly what happened to you. And thanks for letting me talk about it. So that muscle, along with the rest of the rotator cuff, because when we think rotator cuff, I used to think it was just an object. Before I went to school, I used to just think it was a circle. It's a group of 4 muscles, and if you'd like to Google them, they're supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. Yours, the problem was the subscapularis muscle, which is way deep in the armpit here. Let's say the whole rotator cuff's job is, this is your humerus. The top of it is this ball. Looks like this. The whole job of rotator cuff, subscapularis in your case, the rest of it works too, but yours, the problem was in the subscapularis. It holds it in the shoulder socket, which will be my hand here. It holds it in this nice position in the shoulder socket. If it does, you can rotate, do whatever you want. If something happens where the rotator cuff stops doing its job, it lets the head of the humerus ride up and a little bit in and forward in the shoulder socket. So then when you now try to move in a certain way, most people get a problem with this and this. This is way higher up in the socket now. If it's here, free and mobile. There's also a tendon that passes through these 2 points as well, okay? This is representing the socket in this case. Do you remember those couple points that I was showing you on the anatomy app where the supraspinatus tendon went through? That's called the coracoacromial arch. We'll just use, for simplistic purposes, just use head of the humerus and use this as painting the whole picture. This is supposed to be here. It can move freely. You can do your bench press. You can do your overhead press, anything you want. This is allowed to go like this. Now, head of the humerus starts either hitting top of the socket, you risk a labrum problem, or it pinches the supraspinatus in the coracoacromial arch. That is impingement syndrome, okay? So then with yours, the pain was showing up on the front of the shoulder, in front delt, pec, right?
Yep.
Those were overworking. So what we do, we can treat that too, so you can feel better faster. But if we want to fix it, we have to address the cause. So then for you, circling back to what's the best thing you can do pre-training is get the rotator cuff going. So to circle back and answer your question about what can I do to prevent the sciatica, watch my posture in and out of the gym, and then make sure I get, let's say, glute medius and the rest of the strong, powerful glutes firing so that the piriformis and other deep hip rotators don't take over and pinch the sciatic nerve. So to use you as an example to circle back to answer your question, I hope that makes sense for your viewership. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say, those two.
Okay, I see.
So using you as an example, for you, get the rotator cuff going, just to speak in, just giving one example. We talked about a lot of things, you and I in office, but if I'm giving one thing, let's say, watch the posture in and out of the gym, move with intention. That's part of that one. And then warm up appropriately.
Man, warming up appropriately, that's like the hardest thing for...
Well, it's challenging because again, these are things that I learned along the way, but I used to take pride in the fact that it would take me, my warm up was 45 minutes long.
Damn.
This is, I would static stretch before I knew any better, right? Now, it's like 5 minutes, 5, 7, 10 minutes. Just if I'm doing legs, get the powerful glutes going, get the abs kicking, getting ready to go. It depends, too, what your goals are. If you and I are going to go hit a leg session and we talk and we say, okay, we're going to do hip thrusts, squats, we'll want to get the glutes going, priming them for certain moves. If you and I were going to go play tennis, our warm-up might be a little bit different. Because when we're working out, you and I are going to be basically this way, right? We're doing squats, we're doing hip thrusts, deadlifts. If we're playing tennis, we're doing a lot of turning too. So our warm-up might look a little bit different. So it's all based on the goal.
Okay.
And the task ahead.
Gotcha. Can you indicate exactly where the sciatica is located?
Yeah, absolutely. The sciatic nerve starts at your spine. And so you know how they'll say L1, L2? The L is for lumbar, and that's your lower 5 vertebrae. The sciatic nerve will come out from L4, L5, and a little bit of the foramen in the sacrum, which is below it. So think of 5 oranges stacked one on top of another. That's our L1 through L5, our lumbar 1 through 5. The sciatic nerve comes out of between the 4th, 5th, and the sacrum underneath it. So 5 oranges, then a big block. Sciatic nerves coming out between 4 and 5, and then 5 and the big block. Then it courses down through the glutes to the hamstrings. Then once it gets past, if they can see it, once it gets maybe 3/4 of the way down the leg, it'll split in 2. So think of it like 2 highways. The tibial nerve will go down the back of the leg, come to here, and then it'll split again into the nerves that give off the rest of the nerves to the bottom of the feet. So it comes down, splits, and then there's two main ones here, and then those two main ones give off a bunch that goes to the toes. The other avenue, so let's say that's the 405. The 710 is the common peroneal nerve, which will come down around the outside like this. It also come down into the foot. But that's what makes it tricky for folks, because everybody's sciatica presents differently. I've seen people where they say, I've got this pain here, and I've got this pinpoint pain here. The books, the textbooks will tell you, no, it's not sciatica, because the textbooks will tell you sciatica must present as a disc bulge with radiating pain going down the leg, calf, into the toes. A little more old school of thought there. I've seen people with pinpoint pain here and here. We work the sciatic nerve, we work the glutes, hip rotators, some nerve flossing, work some core and hip stability, goes away.
Damn.
Couple treatments, right? I've also seen it where the person that comes in and says, my calves are so tight. I roll my calves every single day, but they feel better for 20 minutes, but they never go away. You check the tibial nerve here, or you check the rest of the sciatic nerve. Say, oh, that's the same feeling that I get in my calves. Work the nerves, goes away. Muscles usually will lock up to protect nerves. So there's a nerve called the musculocutaneous nerve. Comes this way, goes to your bicep. So let's say I say to you, now this side, I feel like my bicep's just not existent. This side I feel good, I get a good pump. This side, nothing. What I Theragun, my bicep all the time. You check the nerve that tells this muscle, hey, activate, do your thing. There's pressure on it, let's say in my armpit here. You free that up, that might help me. So the constant, I roll my calves every day, they are so tight. Check that. A lot of times you can get better if you treat it right. Same thing. My hamstrings are so tight. Only on this side. I roll them all the time. Check the sciatic nerve. Check the spine.
Damn.
Can I go into... I want to go back for a moment into why the posture is important. Can I circle back to that for a second?
Yeah.
There's, in between those oranges that I was telling you about, the 5, there's these discs that act like shock absorbers. And the discs are made up mostly of water, and they're, let's call them circular shaped. And inside this circle, there's a bunch of little rings in there. So let's say big circle, ring, ring. Let's simplify it and say there's 3 ring, ring, ring. On the inner ring is where this stuff called nucleus pulposus is. Let's just say it's mostly water. So let's say it's water in there. So I'm a bodybuilder. I deadlift all the time. I'm pristine with my form when I'm hitting my rep. But when I load the plates on, I'm bending forward like this, moving the plates. I'm sitting on a stool like this beforehand. Let's say most common scenario. When you bend forward like this, even if you're just doing it sitting here, it can have an effect on you. I'm bending forward. These discs, you can think of them like water balloons. So if you and I filled up a water balloon and we put pressure on the front of the water balloon, where does water go? It goes out the back, right? So the discs behave in a similar fashion. So if I keep bending forward, especially under load, I'm putting pressure on the front of the disc, which each time weakens these rings just a little bit. They call it delamination. Just think of it like weakening this ring that I have. I do that over time. Eventually, the water squirts a little bit out that first ring. I keep doing it. Second, I keep doing it. Over here like this, right? So then there's different things that can happen, right? So if the ring, the outer layer that's called the annulus fibrosus, if that goes out like this, think of a big cheeseburger. You've got the bun, and then you've got the big patties outside of the bun a little bit. Mm-hmm. You can think of that like a disc bulge, because everybody says, "Oh, I slipped a disc, I bulged a disc, I have a disc herniation." They mean different things. They're similar, but they mean different things. So, again, the reason why I'm going back to this is the outer layer comes out a little bit, bulge. Has the opportunity to hit the nerve. Well, the nerves on both sides, if it goes straight back. Mm-hmm. All could be influenced by that bending forward. So then if the inner water eventually breaks through all those little rings and then squirts out the back, that's a herniation. Again, Oof. That can hit the nerves too. Okay? That can cause pain. So if that happens between orange 4, orange 5, and big block sacrum, remember, that's where the sciatic nerve comes out of. So if I'm the vertebra facing this way, I've got nerve going out this way, and I've got nerve going out this way. Mm-hmm. So then if one goes straight back, it's probably going to hit both of them. So then, oh, shoot, I've got pain going down both my legs. If I'm an assembly line worker and I'm going boom, boom, boom. If I water balloon front left, where's water going? Back right. So then that's when you'll usually see, okay, yeah, I feel it only on this side. I feel pain in my back, and then I feel this. So that's why I wanted to circle back to that, just watching posture over time, because it can add up, right? We don't realize these things, but it can very much add up. And then you tweak your back at the gym. All of a sudden, it feels a little better to sit like this for about 20 minutes. And then you move about. Tight. Oh, that feels a little bit better. It's tricking you. It just kind of stimulates this thing called the stretch reflex. It's tricking you. But each time you go into this, oh, that's a little bit better for 20 minutes. Now I got hurts to sit like this. Like this. Each time you're sitting like this for prolonged periods of time, this thing's happening. And it all started with that one rep that you grinded out at the gym where, you know those at the deadlift, you get it to your knees and you're bucking it out like this. You know what I mean? And it all starts with that. Then, oh man, I didn't feel it right when I was deadlifting, but I felt it when I got home when I was watching Ozark.
No,
right? So
dude.
That's why if you can take one thing away from what I'm saying, things add up. Things do add up, right? You get to the gym, I'm rushed for time. I have 45 minutes. I would love if you all spent a few of those minutes warming up, right? What if you're sitting at a desk all day like this? Your pecs get really tight. Right. Front delt gets really tight.
Which a majority of us are.
Yes. Or you're sitting, influencing like this and like this.
Yeah.
We spend no time getting the rotator cuff going. All of a sudden, we're going like this. Oh, something pinches. Something that I like to share with people. The body, remind me if I don't circle back, if I don't end up circling back to anything, because I apologize, I go off on these tangents all the time.
No, please do, man.
It's a little harder, open form like this. It's a little bit easier for me in office when someone's asking me a specific, something. Oh, my knee. Okay, I looked on YouTube and it said this, or this person said it's this. So bear with me. It's a little bit harder to keep I have all these thoughts in my mind that I want to make sure I circle back to. So thanks for bearing with me, everybody. I just got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm not good. And I was just training for about 3 hours, and I was getting choked every 45 seconds. So I'm coming back. I'm coming back online now. So the body is fascinating, and it's so smart, but it's also so stupid as well. God forgive me for saying that. Why? Certain things, when they get tight, they overwork. Certain things, when they get tight, they underperform. So let's say I'm desk worker, sitting, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting good posture. Noon, 2 p.m., 5. Eventually I'm like this, right? Pecs and delts are activated, bringing my arms forward, so I'm typing all day. They get tight. These ones, stupid. When they get tight, they love to overwork. Rhomboids, rotator cuff, serratus anterior, they get tight, they say, taking a vacation. Remember, those ones are very, very important for your goal of pressing 140s with the dumbbells. So, here's the scenario. Sitting. These bring my arms forward, pecs and delts, pec and front delt, let's say. They get tight. Now I go to the gym, super tight and eager to do everything for me. Off. If you don't spend some time getting those going, it can cause injury. Because most of these, remember, we talked about the rotator cuff holds this here. So if I'm working all day, pec and delt are on the front of this. They love to pull. Remember, the top of this is the ball. Mm-hmm. They love to pull this up and forward. What pulls it back down? Rotator cuff. But if that said, oh, okay, see ya. Nothing opposes this pull up and forward. So then you go to the gym like this. Now you're going to press, and you need this to eventually, if these aren't working, the brain always thinks task completion. So you're doing your 140s. You're contracting, using the pecs, front delt. The shoulder needs to not only move, but it needs to be stable too. So now pecs and delts are doing both of those jobs. Pulls this even more. Eventually, something gets irritated. So that's why I say it's interesting, because some, when they get tight, they overwork. Some, when they get tight, underwork.
Which one's underwork?
There are rhomboids, for instance, the serratus anterior. There's a Czechoslovakian neurologist, Vladimir Janda, rest in peace, to paint a picture in your mind and your viewer's mind. Think of two X's, one of your upper body, one of the lower body. And he called these upper and lower crossed syndrome. Okay? So if you took me like this, just picture like your audience looking, and you drew an X in my upper body, anything going this way on my X, tight. Anything going this way on my X will get weak. Stupid, lazy, okay? Mm-hmm. So along this path, upper trap, pecs, for instance. Along this path, rhomboids, serratus anterior, for example, okay? For the lower extremity, X. What gets too tight? My erectors and my hip flexors. What gets weak? Glutes, abs, core, glutes. So just think of those two X's like this to give you an example. If you're ever wondering, okay, which one would get tight? Which one would get weak? Which one's stupid? Which one's lazy? No offense to our bodies, but that's just, I try my best to simplify things. So if you have I like pictures. So if you have a picture in your head of you, traps, pecs, rhomboids, serratus anterior. Weak. There's my rear X.
So abs and glutes.
Yep.
Weak.
Yep.
So which one's not weak?
Well, that's person specific. But on the other end of that X would be extremely tight, going along with this upper and lower cross syndrome. The extremely tight would be erectors, hip flexors.
Okay.
Then,
which is definitely me.
So it's all of us. So then they feed into each other too, because if you look, there's a thing in the body called coupled motion. Something happens here, it triggers something else nearby. Again, I'm my desk worker. I'm sitting all day. My hip flexors get tight. Tight hip flexors anteriorly tilt the pelvis. So if you look at, like, you use my belt buckle as a reference. If I do this, that's anterior pelvic tilt, posterior pelvic tilt. So it's like a water basin. Water out the front, anterior tilt. Water out the back, posterior tilt. When I anteriorly tilt, and it doesn't have to even be me saying, okay, let me, like this. Mm-hmm. Hip flexor gets tight, automatically does it. It doesn't matter if it's that or it's very subtle. Over time, it matters. The coupled motion with anterior pelvic tilt is extension of the lumbar spine. So this gets tight all day. Hyperextension of the lumbar spine. Again, it doesn't have to look like this. Mm-hmm. It's just subtle. That can irritate the joints on the sides of our oranges, called the facet joints. You end up with something called facet syndrome. That's a term that's thrown around a lot. Those can refer pain to the sides. So then it's my QL, Niall. It's my QL. I roll this thing every day, Niall, but it never gets better. I use my Theragun and it feels so good for 20 minutes. Then it comes back. Look elsewhere. Look at the hip flexors. Address the cause. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Coupled motions. So
I see.
Forward, back, jams together. That can inhibit the core and the glutes, all stemming from the tight hip flexor. So then a common thing is, well, my glutes can't be weak. I train them 17 times a week. So start looking at compensations. Watch the hip thrusts. First rep, beautiful. Boom, using the glutes. You've got hundreds of pounds on there, and you want your 10th rep because you're filming it. You have to get the rep to get up to the top. I feed into that mechanism. I use my erectors I use mainly my erectors instead of my glutes. I feed into that mechanism of them being tight. After I've just sat all day where my hip flexors are tight, I did nothing to warm them up or to lengthen them or to activate them or anything before I trained because I'm on a time block. Mm-hmm. I set myself up for potential injury. So tight, pelvis goes forward, hyperextends the lumbar spine, facets jam together. That can reflexively inhibit core and glutes. Now you're walking into your leg day at suboptimal. Then I know you and your viewers train super hard, so you're going in already suboptimal. A lot of my friends are in the UFC. It's like going in like this and like this. You know, you're still probably going to do pretty well.
With an eye patch.
Yeah, but you can do better. Mm-hmm. You know, you're more likely to get injured walking into an octagon like this than like this. You know,
right?
So again, it goes back to that. But to going along with the coupled motions, I try to teach people too that what you're feeling. Kind of sorry to get so philosophical, but I notice a lot of people identify with their pain, and a lot of people feel like it's their fault. that they're in pain. What did I do? Oh, what do I keep doing? What did I do? Right? I see people they come in crying, and it's not your fault, right? You sit at a desk, you work your tail off all day, grinding. Your hip flexor is going to get tight. Remember the sequence of events. Mm-hmm. I'm on a grind. I've got to get back to my chair to keep grinding. I'm going to take an hour for the gym. If I'm going to do an hour, I want to be working out the whole time. I'm not going to take 5 minutes to work out and 55-minute workout. I used to do that all the time too. That's why I used to hurt all the time.
Still do that all the time.
But each time you hear it, you think, okay. So that's why I like to, I try my best to take things and conceptualize them as opposed to just, I'll warm up. Okay. If you told me that and I didn't have any backing in this ear, out that one, into these sweet headphones, right? Then into the abyss, right? So people think like it's their fault. But what if I'm Joe Smith chasing entrepreneurship? I want to be, what if I want to be like you? I want to be a successful influencer and, I want to impact millions of lives. I'm going to grind, right? Grind, sitting, go to the gym, work on my appearance, come back, sit, edit. All starts with my hip flexors getting really tight. All of a sudden, again, sequence of events, gets weak. I want to look the part. I want to hip thrust like this person. Like this, but I walked into my hip thrusts like this. My erector's already super tight. They would love to do the work. They're stupid. They say, let me work to extend the hips on Joe Smith's hip thrusts. They can do it, but they already have a job to hold you up like this, to move you around a little bit. Then they hit a point where they can't take it anymore. They hurt.
I do feel like standing on my counter and doing my work on my counter at like my standing desk has helped quite a bit.
You got a nice standing desk out there. That's a legit, you don't have to quote it. That's a legit standing desk out there. That's nice.
Or do you mean the work treadmill?
And your counter.
Yeah, the counter
That's
too,
perfect.
right? Yeah, super nice.
But
problem is I'm right next to the kitchen.
Yeah, if you eat healthy.
Yeah.
You told me you ate some salmon and chicken and
Yeah, I do.
Before this?
But I sometimes eat a few extra bowls of rice over my program.
Well, you told me you had a nice pre-podcast meal. Do you want to tell them what else you had?
Not really.
Okay, that's fine. Chicken, salmon, water. Anyways, just so I don't forget this thought that it's not your fault, right? You're chasing the goal. Tight, off. You go into this hip thrust because I see my friends and influencers grinding so hard. I have to do this too. You do it, eventually tweaks the back. Oh, what did I do? You're going through your whole workout thinking, oh, shoot, I can't work out anymore. A week goes by. Your back still hurts. You go to your workout. That's your vice from chasing the dream. Chasing the dream is not easy. There's a lot of ups and a lot of downs too. So a lot of times the gym can be, if you're down, it can bring you back up. If you can't work out, then you think, oh, why can't I work out? What did I do? You start hyperanalyzing your workouts when it was just you needed a little help with the hip flexors before you worked out, right? So I've seen people going back again to that bending forward. I've seen people with disc bulges that say, Mike, I'm so pathetic, I can't even brush my teeth anymore. But it's not, you're not pathetic. It's not that you can't brush your teeth. It's when they would go over the counter, they would be like that, brushing their teeth. Teach them how to hip hinge, brush from here. And they say, oh, great. But again, it all started, imagine if someone wasn't there to intervene and you're telling your friends, I'm so pathetic, I can't even brush my teeth anymore.
A lot of it really does seem to happen with posture.
Yeah. Think about, just before I forget, I'm so pathetic, I can't even brush my hair. Well, if you sit all day, pec and delt, pull this up. If I want to bring my arm up like this, the head of my humerus, this is forward, boom, ow. So then I'm thinking task completion, I have to do my hair. So if this hurts, guess what? I can still get it up there, but now I'm using this up here. So, oh, no, my traps are so tight. Every day. What am I doing? I do this every day. Why doesn't it get better? Check the shoulder. If you can help the shoulder to then do this, you don't have to do this. Traps aren't overworking too much. They won't be so tight. 3 things for injuries. I hope this makes sense. Use the number 10 as owie. Okay, owie. I can produce 10 with one blow, car accident, I get hit with something, right? I can produce 10 with 10 billion little ones, or I can produce 10 with one prolonged one. Car accident, pain, alters the way that I move. Could lead me down that path. Let's just say I was in a car accident, but I still have to work. Off, back hurts. Okay? Say I'm assembly line worker. 10 billion of those can get me to the same 10 that was produced from the impact. Let's say I'm a truck driver, driving thousands of miles, a little vibration from the truck, that can get me to the same 10. It all leads down. Certain things are going to get tight. Certain things are going to get weak if not addressed. Potential for injury. So that's what, in terms of if you're sitting there saying, "What did I do?" and you're so mad at yourself because you're hurting, try to think, "Oh, okay, it was that car accident, or it was me bending 10 million times moving boxes, or it was that one drive to EDC like this,
or it was just you sleeping at night."
Yes,
in the wrong position, or
you have all 3, right? Or all 3. So pretty interesting. But if you're, I hope that this can help somebody, because I see a lot of people. It makes me sad. I see a lot of people that are so down on themselves and they blame themselves for why they're hurting. But if you can understand it mechanistically, I think it can liberate. It can be liberating.
I see that as well, and I see that in myself too. I think it's just because people get so irritated with something they can't control, which is unfortunate. One of the best things that we can learn in life is to relieve that stress from the things that we can't control.
Right.
And just accept that. But it's hard when you just have an injury that happens, and especially if it prevents you from your biggest passion or your career.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's either a passion or it's a vice. It's an escape from something while you're chasing that goal. Right. I know people that, patients, I really respect the fact that they will open up. And I can't tell you how many people have said that they've been in such a deep depression and they were so close to being on the mend out of it because of working out, and then they got injured, and then they blamed themselves for the injury. What did I do? Why? And they go right back down. Right. So I working out is just whatever form of working out you like to do. I've seen it just help so many people. I just hope that message helps people, because it almost seems like when someone understands why something hurts, it's pretty liberating. It's pretty awesome. And so, if you can understand it's not your fault, if you don't mind if I share a story of a wonderful woman, let's call her Phoebe. She was having elbow pain.
Can we call her Evie?
No, because
I'm just kidding.
She's very dear to me. Shout out to her. Let's go Phoebe. Phoebe was having some crazy elbow pain in here. And when I was doing an exam, etc. Check the shoulder and everything too. Check the neck, etc. Feeling around the area too. She keeps saying, "Do you feel that? Do you feel that?" And she kept asking, and I'd say, "Yes, yes, yes. It's this. It's this. It's muscle A, B, C. It's muscle. It's nerve P, Q. Da da da." Keeps asking, and eventually I said, "You know, do you want to? Do you not? I'm poking. Do you not feel this moon crater of a knot here that's pressing on the radial nerve?" She started crying. And this was early on in my practice too. So I said, "Oh man, I hope I didn't offend her." And she says, "You're the first person that's ever validated that something's actually wrong." Bawling her eyes out. So she goes down the story of saying her husband would be very dismissive of her pain. He would type a lot. So when typing, you're using a lot of these. Gets tight. His would respond to typical Theragun. Typical just in there. Okay, let me stretch a little bit. Hers wasn't because it was a major nerve trap here, but also up in her shoulder and her neck too. But she would always ask her husband, "Hey, can you just rub this here? Like, can you help?" And he was, "Oh, you ask every day. Mine's tight too. Mine gets better." Dismissive, right? So then just, going off on a tangent there, but again, I tie that back to, I hope that you can, if I can't sit in the room with each and every one of you and tell you, "Oh, this is the problem," but I hope these words can at least lead you down a path where you can almost help yourself mechanistically and validate, "Oh, okay, that's why my shoulder might hurt. It's not just me. I'm not going to be screwed for the rest of my life. I'm not stuck like this." So I hope that can help somebody.
Do you mind if I ask, did you say it was the sciatica that David Lee had an issue with?
That I don't want to say on air without his permission.
Oh yeah, of course. I didn't know if
kind of gives it away that he's a friend of mine too. We did a YouTube video, he and I, and he actually has a lot. If you want to see he has a beautiful video, especially one with Dr. Stuart McGill, who's the world's leading biomechanist in terms of spine. He's got a great video on his channel. I'm sorry to put the damper on the question. Just without him here, I wouldn't want to start speaking.
Yeah, of course.
I only do for you because you're here and I ask your permission. But there's a lot of what I can direct you towards is his YouTube channel. He's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Oh my gosh. His YouTube videos, even listening to him explain it, he understands it so well, and it's very inspiring.
It as in like the injury, or
with him, he's not a chiropractor, right? He hasn't gone to chiropractic school, but the way he does his own research and he listens and absorbs and can explain it back to someone, it's unbelievable. You'd think he's a chiropractor. You'd think he's a physical therapist. He's a genius.
Nice.
Yeah. So, again, sorry to kind of route off that a little bit. I'd love to. If he was here, I would ask him his permission.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no worries. I just didn't know if that was already something that he talked about, like on his videos or publicly or whatever.
He did.
So,
and it's wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I guess without trying to like name names, then, because I am mostly just curious, like what are the most intense injuries that you've seen, and like what are ways that people can like prevent that. So, for example, you were talking about when you're doing a hip thrust, and then you overcompensate, you use your lower back, and then you were also mentioning tight hip flexors. So what's a good way that someone can warm up their hip flexors before like a workout?
Oh, that's a nice question.
Assuming that they say they were like sitting all day.
Nice question. Okay, so let me use myself as an example. My first thought was, let me reach back, grab my ankle, pull up and stretch.
Mm-hmm.
This is before a workout. Static stretching, meaning just, in my opinion, not the wisest thing to do. There's a lot of research on that. Just basically, when you go and do this, you kind of tell the muscles, okay, relax so that I can stretch. So if you do this, let's say for my rear delt, I'm kind of telling my rear delt, okay, I need you to relax so that you can stretch. I then go into my session with you. I'm working out with you, Niall. We're doing reverse pec deck. I don't want that to be super relaxed. I want it to be active, ready to go. We're doing this, right? This is important. The way back is very important too. Mm-hmm. So I've done this, super relaxed. What's stupid? Ready to rock and roll, baby. Right here on the way back. So instead of this eccentrically lengthening,
so are you talking about like your rear delt or like your...
When I slap myself like this, I'm saying pec and front delt are ready.
In the front.
Yep, they're ready.
But then when you were hitting your back, what were you talking about?
Okay, so sorry. When I'm
just saying this just for the people that are just listening and not watching.
Oh, okay. So sorry, I didn't think of that. So, okay. So I'm pulling, for those that are just listening, I'm pulling my arm across my body because that's what I've heard. Okay, I have to stretch more. I've been sitting at a desk all day, right? I have to stretch more. I'm tight in the back. Let me pull across to try and get this stretch across my mid-back. Stretching, you are trying to stretch a muscle, yes? So stretching, you're increasing the length of a muscle. So I'm at a desk all day. I'm working out with you, Niall. You're a beast. I'm going to say, okay, I got to stretch a little bit beforehand. I've now told my rear delts and my rhomboids, okay, relax so that you can lengthen, right? Mm-hmm. But when I go into my workout with you, I need them to not be all loosey-goosey. I need them ready to go. I need them activated, ready to go, so that I don't get hurt. So you and I, we start off with reverse pec deck, right? When I go back, that's my concentric phase. On the way back in to load up for my next rep, that's the eccentric phase. So if I'm coming back in after my first rep and these aren't ready to go, remember what we were talking about before. Pec and delt love to take over. Mm-hmm. So when I'm on my way back in from my rep of the pec deck, I need rear delts, rhomboids, etc. in the back to be able to eccentrically contract. Meaning, I go out, they're concentrically contracting, I come back in, eccentrically contracting. I need them to have a certain tone to them to respond to the weight that I'm using. So I'm coming back in. These are all loosey-goosey in the back. Remember, pec and front delt are ready. They say, okay, let's overwork. Let's try and stabilize the shoulder. Mm-hmm. Right? That happens rep after rep after rep. I go back to sitting. I could end up with some kind of impingement. So with the hip flexors, going back, I can static stretch. I can grab my leg, pull it up. Not the wisest thing, because when I go do my hip thrusts with you, on my way up, I need my hip flexors to lengthen, right? Mm-hmm. So if I've gone, then I also need them to help me on the way back down so I don't just come crashing down to the ground. So on the way up, you're thinking glutes contracting. On the way down, you're thinking hip flexors helping me, along with glutes and abs, to not come crashing down to the ground. But if hip flexors are super loosey-goosey before my training, they're not going to be able to help me. So what you can do instead is load them in their lengthened position. So glute bridges, single leg glute bridges. When I get to the top of my bridge, my hip flexors are lengthening. Glutes are contracting. These are lengthening. I go back down. I come back up again. So muscles and certain tissues respond better to being loaded at their end range. So hip flexor, I have the opportunity after sitting, I can either grab my ankle, pull back 60 seconds, call it a day. Let's go now. Let's crush a C4 and let's go. Or I can do some single leg glute bridges.
Glute bridges, right.
Yep. I can have my right leg back. Speaking to the right hip flexor, what if I do some body weight split stance lunges? What if I throw this up on a bench, go down into a Bulgarian split squat? I'm loading because hip flexion is this. But remember, it doesn't have to be all of this. I'm still sitting in hip flexion, still sitting in hip flexion. Hip extension is when this goes back. So, again, I can do this, but that's a static stretch. I can do that late at night when I'm watching TV. But before training, it would be better for me to put this up on something, go down at the bottom of this rep. This is in hip extension, and I'm loading it in its lengthened position. So when I go to when I go to hip extension, leg back, I'm eccentrically loading my hip flexors. You see? That's how I would say my best tip to answer your question, the hip flexors, how can I get those going pre-training? Load them in hip extension. Start off body weight, then you can use bands, things like that. I'll use a couple examples. I'll take a kettlebell in my right hand, right leg back, a couple split stance lunges. I'll hold a kettlebell by the horns in front of me, right leg back, same style lunges. One of those bands across my, those little hip circle bands. Right foot on the ground, left leg will be up. I'll do some bridges. I can I can accomplish a lot of things just doing that because the band wants to pull me in this way. Yes, my knees, for the people not watching, the band wants to pull my knees in. So in order to not end up like this, I've got to actively drive them out, right? What does that? Glute medius, glute minimus. Now I go do my bridge. What's the main hip extensor muscle? Glute maximus. Boom. I just hit maximus, medius, and minimus. Took me a couple, I do a couple reps there, maybe a couple sets, I'm ready to go.
Whole process sounds very knees over toes guy.
Oh, I love Ben.
Yeah.
I love Ben.
And you know what's so funny about
Ben
that?
Patrick is I make fun of a lot of friends that use only social media names. People will say, I love knees over toes guy. I say, oh, Ben is brilliant. Who? Ben Patrick. Who? Knees over toes guy. So just quick little tangent, but he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. If anybody follows his ATG system, he's doing a lot of reverse sled stuff. So walking backwards with the sled, get the quads going.
I saw him and Andrew Huberman doing that together. It was a hoot.
Fantastic, right? Andrew Huberman's wonderful as well. Love his podcast, by the way. Then, so in all of 5 minutes, he's got you dragging the sled backwards. Get the quads, get the front shins going. Turn around, push it with good form. You're getting the glutes, calves, hamstrings. He has a couple other things that he's doing in the warm-up. Boom. Ready to get to the weights. Right? So I hope that answers your question on the tight hip flexors. What are some things that I can do? Now, we're speaking in terms of general here, right? Just so we can impact the most amount of people. Try things. You try the Bulgarian split squats, things like that. If it hurts, stop. Think about it. Try your best. Oh, let me change this position. Let me brace my core a little bit. If you find yourself not if it's still bugging you, send me a message on Instagram. I can help you find someone in your area that can help you. But I hope that answers your question on.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. If you guys want to support the podcast, you can get something from Young Layer Huge Supplements with code Nile. They'll get you 50% off and also help fund the podcast. Sorry if this place smells a little bit. I like cologne and stuff. I had a podcast with Joe Aesthetics the other day. Man, you can smell the man a mile away.
I broke my nose in 1998, and I lost most of my sense of smell.
No way.
Your place smells like everything else. It smells like nothing.
Holy shit.
So, thank you for the insight.
That's insane.
I smell nothing.
It makes me wonder if I had to pick a sense that I had to lose. I feel like smell would probably be it.
Depends. Does it heighten something else too? This is not scientifically backed.
Yeah,
I feel like it enhanced my sense of taste.
Interesting.
Well. Yes.
You would think the opposite sometimes, because like sometimes scent is used to taste things.
I could be crazy, so don't quote me on that. But
you could be Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Taste man. Okay. So what are the differences between injuries that you see between powerlifters and bodybuilders?
Oh, nice question. Okay. So bodybuilders tend to have the more long-standing ones, and the bodybuilders, it's typically the overdominance of the front, and that is, let's say, overpowering the back. So most bodybuilders, I'm either seeing low back, shoulder, neck. Powerlifters, it's all across the board. At least in my practice, they're a bit more of the I'm good. Ooh, tweaked something. That's what I would say the difference is. The bodybuilders, it's more long-standing things. With both are very extreme and tough disciplines, but it's tricky when you're going to get on stage. You've been sitting at a desk, your traps get super tight because those go in with that upper crust that we were talking about before. Traps get really tight. Then you're judged on your appearance, so then you have to go and like this, getting them even tighter, but you're trying to build them in terms of hypertrophy because they will be part of the judging package, right? So it's tricky when if I experienced headaches, but then at the gym I went and hit myself with a hammer in the head, but that's what I had to do for my job, right? Or for my goal, because if I'm going to compete, I know you and your audience, if you're going to compete, you're going to go for it, right? So I hope that analogy makes sense too. It's kind of, this is already super tight. It's causing some neck pain, some headaches, and shoulder pain for you. So but then you have to go to the gym and you've got to train shoulders anyways.
So more overall injuries from powerlifters.
More overall, I have to think about that. What do you mean by more overall injuries?
That's what I thought you said.
More, they both have more long-standing ones. My traps are so tight.
From bodybuilders.
Yeah, they've been tight since I was a teenager. Whereas the powerlifters are, I was going for this snatch on Tuesday, May 17th. And you know what I mean? It's way more, this happened 2 days ago. I want to address it. Versus the bodybuilders are kind of like, my hip flexors have been tight since I came out of the womb and I just never dealt with it.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what I would say. But, I'm treating a lot of more ankles and knees with powerlifters as opposed to bodybuilders.
Great.
Yeah, a lot more wrists and things like that, right? Because with certain, when you're doing these things, maybe I can put Olympic lifters in on a same field as powerlifters, right? Going for the things like the snatch and things like that. You know, you'll see a lot of wrist injuries, things like that. Where with bodybuilders,
I've been stretching my wrist just because I want to prepare for that. I want to learn how to Olympic lift.
are you going to do it?
Excellent.
You're not stretching before your lifts though, right?
No, I stretch at night before sleep now. Static stretch at night before sleep, and
Not
then
before training.
Dynamic stretch before training, and then doing like the external internal rotations.
Good man.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do before lifting is the glute bridge with staggered foot position.
Excellent.
Yeah, so like for my tight left hip flexor, foot is much closer to my glute, and then right foot is much farther.
The kickstand stance. Some people call that the B stance or the KAS. I'm not sure what that actually stands for, but I have. Good on you. That's fantastic.
Nice.
So, and your goal with that is to lengthen your hip flexor, yes?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Good man. Good man.
If only I could have done this like years ago.
Same.
So I didn't have to have this issue.
It's never too late though.
True.
Right?
This is true.
Mine was, before I went to chiropractic school, being almost in pain was almost like a badge of honor, and I kind of identified with it too, right? Like if I meet somebody and they say, "Oh, you get, oh, I have headaches, I have migraines, I have to one up," right? But then I met my mentor, Dr. Matt Rice, and he changed my life, man. Just watching this guy treat patients while I was going through school and just watching him. And I remember, I would ask him, "Hey, do you need me to work on anything tight?" And he'd be like, "Nope, I'm good." Meanwhile, my neck is killing me because I sit like this and then I don't warm up. And, it was just mind blowing. So it's never too late.
This entire time you've been talking, I just keep trying to fix my position in my chair to make sure I'm straight. I'm like all self-conscious now.
Good.
I realize this chair just needs to have a little bit more cushion right in the middle.
That's what,
so I don't have to fold over.
You and I may or may not had this conversation before, but when I open my door from my treatment room, I find 90% of people, bodybuilders / influencers, are on their phone like this. In my waiting room. So what are you doing? So yeah, funny.
Yeah, this is true. This is weird, but sometimes when I feel like I'm sitting cross-legged in my chair, if I can, I almost feel like my posture and my back gets better.
Interesting.
That's not okay.
It's not weird.
Interesting.
No. So how you are?
Well, if I actually sit cross-legged in this chair right now, it would fall back.
Okay.
This is a really crappy chair that doesn't have like a thing to make it stay. Because it's a chair I got from my best friend that passed away, and
Rest in peace. Sorry
so
for your loss.
I like just don't want to give it up. Everyone's like, "Oh, you need to get a new chair now."
Don't
I'm
ever.
just like, I don't really want to.
Don't ever. Let's think about that. So if I'm crossing my leg, let me go into a little bit of biomechanics here. To cross my leg, I'm going to have to flex, abduct, and externally rotate my hip joint. That will stretch the majority of my glutes. That produces a stretch there. Perhaps, that feels kind of nice. Let me sit up straight with that too. Maybe. Maybe that's why.
Probably is.
Maybe.
I'm probably just more actively fixing my posture.
Hey, you're
when I do
thinking
that.
about it.
Yeah, thinking sitting cross-legged Asian style.
Yeah. Well, once you get to your couch at night, you throw The Office on the television and you just sit back, enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Okay, so powerlifters, bodybuilders have a lot more long-standing injuries that it seems, right? What are the most common injuries that you've seen with bodybuilders specifically, like these long-standing injuries? Would it be like the hip flexors? Has shoulder impingement been a very common injury that you've seen?
Quite common.
Quite common.
Quite common. Yes. Nobody ever comes in really and says, I have shoulder impingement. It's more of just, my XYZ gets so tight and it's painful right in the front when I press. And then we figure out, okay, the diagnosis is some form of shoulder impingement.
Right.
With bodybuilders, if I had this, the one is mid neck traps here and mid back. If I had to say one, it's that. Shoulders second, low back third.
Okay.
Going back versus powerlifters, a lot of extremities, elbows, wrists, those ones too. But they're more of, okay, this happened to me on Tuesday. I have a meet on next Tuesday, and I need to be better, right? With bodybuilders, there's certain things in training that are not the most biomechanically efficient for the body, but we do them to try and isolate, I need more X, I need more Y, I need more rear delt, I need more lat. So some training that I see, if I'm going through Instagram and things like that, I see some things that they're trying to isolate this. Not the most biomechanically sound thing for the human body, but it gets them to their goal of, I need to bring up my X for the stage. See what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, that didn't really I don't think that did too good of a job of answering that question. Bodybuilders, the reason why the traps, mid back, low back, if I'm doing rows, seated cable rows, I'm going to stay like this and pull. A common thing for the bodybuilding world is
full stretch.
Mm-hmm. Under great loads, not necessarily the greatest thing for the spine, but if that gives you a little bit more oomph on your way back, on your rep, you can do it with a little bit more weight. Oftentimes, more weight, more hypertrophy. That's the goal. Or more weight, if you're shredding down, more weight, more calories you can burn. Right? Because you're going heavier. So that's why I would say those with the bodybuilders. Because it's not necessarily the greatest, they're not using the greatest biomechanically sound form for the human frame, but they're doing it for a specific goal.
Okay. Interesting. Maybe
that does a little bit better.
I think it does. It does help a little bit.
As to what, because then you can picture a certain, those rows. You can substitute in many different exercises. The most biomechanically sound, if I'm doing a curl, I'm going to want to stand with it. I'm going to want to squeeze my butt, my abs. I'm going to want to be standing to do something, right? Bodybuilding, if I want to isolate bicep as much as I can, or try to isolate, because other things have to work. Even if I'm doing like a spider curl or a preacher curl, other things are going to be working, right? Mm-hmm. But I can collectively say, okay, I want to try and isolate my biceps. Out like this, way far forward, I do this, and I'm trying to protract like this so that I can limit involvement of some of these and some of these, so that this whole, as much of this load that I'm doing can be put here, because I want hypertrophy. Not necessarily the best thing for my neck to be out like this and curling like this, but if it gets me to my goal of winning my bodybuilding competition, I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. So then take any of those exercises and sub in your favorite bodybuilding exercise, and it may not be the most, again, biomechanically optimal, but if it's for your goal, you're going to do it. Mm-hmm.
I think most bodybuilders will do the stretch though because they believe that they should do a full stretch and a full range of motion, and some of them probably believe that in doing that stretch they can better stretch their rhomboids, and then come back and retract their scapula in order to get those muscles in the middle of the back.
Right. I respect the heck
out of it. I can
understand,
understand, right? But I think I agree over certain loads, doing repetitions on repetitions, especially at certain points where you're starting to go to failure. I'm sure that some of these people will have their form break down a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm not do whatever gets you to your goal, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm just saying I like doing this because on times where I have experimented with this, it's not really, it leaves me very uncomfortable in my neck. Mm-hmm. The next day, and I've had days where I'm working on people and I want to be at my best to try and help people. So if I'm like this all the time,
right,
it may take away from what I can give to another person. So if you're going for that, if your coach is telling you to do that or you see it and you want to try it. So
for powerlifters, what is the best way that they can try to prevent those, random injuries that seem to occur, in their extremities or wherever you tend to see them most?
Okay. So again, great question. To sound a little repetitive, but again, postures, warm up, right? So if you want it, let's use the wrist, for instance. One of my favorite examples for why it's important to have a strong core is from Stuart McGill. Would you feel, if we had a cannon in here, would you feel more confident shooting out of a cannon that the cannon was anchored into the ground? Or would you feel more confident shooting a cannon that's in a canoe in the middle of the water?
Anchored.
Yes, me too. So water, you don't know which way that thing's going. So I don't explain it as well as Stu McGill does. But my point is, a quote, proximal stability unleashes distal mobility. So for these power lifters that are dealing with some knee pain, look to the core, look to the glutes, because most of the time you'll see when if I'm going for personal best, watch most people in their powerlifting meet, the knees are caving in. It's just you're going for a load that you've done, but you haven't, let's say, mastered it, right? If you were to just bodyweight squat, it looks good. If you were going for 500 pounds, I think you could get it, but I think your knees would cave in a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that getting that to not happen comes from core and from glutes. And so it goes, what to do for them? Warm up properly. Get the abs going. Get the glutes going. Because then I can use this to help me with any of my extremity joints. Powerlifters with bench pressing. I start to get some pain in my elbow. Look to the shoulder, look to the core, right? So this lets me do my work elsewhere. If I'm not able to create a good, stable foundation, like my anchor into the ground, something else has to try to create that stable foundation. So then if this isn't doing it, meaning rotator cuff, etc., my elbow still needs some stability. So instead of getting it from my anchor, I'll use this. These have a job, which is just a little wrist motion, etc. Not too great for elbow stability. So for upper body, think wrist and elbow stability. Think upper torso. Think abs. Think rotator cuff. Just to generalize. For lower, knee and ankle stability, think glutes and think core. Right? So again, to try your best to prevent a wrist injury with bench press, go to the core, go to the rotator cuff. work the foundation. Because then if it's not stable, something elsewhere will leak energy. Your wrist might buckle under the load, right? So you need the stability for here, the ability to maintain this good joint integrity. A lot of it's coming from up here.
Interesting.
That's how I'd say.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
How does it come from up there?
It's in these mechanisms. Do you know how when if I'm squatting, you know how one of the common cues is, okay, now break the bar across your back.
Yep.
It's very hard to break the bar across your back unless you're Larry or something. But it's not about breaking the bar. It's what it does to the body. It's doing this, and it's creating tension in the core, creating tension in the shoulders. Because if you do, you're making a good brace here. You're stable. You're ready to go. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Think of your soda can here. If it was full and closed, and you tried to smash it, you'd probably break your hand, right? Think of this as your spine with a good brace, breaking the bar, engaging lats.
Holding that pressure in
pulling
there
down.
too, right?
Yes. So in the can, why am I going to break my hand? Because there's so much pressure in the can. Abdominal cavity works the same way. If I increase intra-abdominal pressure, it's very unlikely that my spine will buckle, leading me down that road of I can potentially start injuring the discs. So think about, you drink this whole thing, we pinch the sides in a little bit, there's no pressure in the can, you'll pancake that thing. The same thing can happen with the body. Not just the spine, but with other joints as well. Because if your foundation goes, other things can get compromised,
Right.
as well. It was interesting to all these. Sorry, to speak in terms of how amazing these powerlifting feats and bodybuilding feats are. They did a study in Canada where they took cadaver spines and they exposed them to compressive loads, so just loads coming down like this, and 26 pounds of compressive force snapped the spine in half.
Oh my God.
26. So how cool is that our muscular system can prevent that from happening with X 100 pounds, 1,000 pounds for some of this. It's unbelievable. So the power of the core, right? So it all starts from there. Yeah. If that breaks down, if that buckles, something else along the chain will buckle. It's the bench press that I'm going, I want that last rep, and instead of keeping a good position here, I start to do this. All of a sudden, the stress on my elbow goes through the roof. Hurt my elbow.
By bending your wrist backwards.
Yeah.
Once it starts giving way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then how could I have mitigated that? A little bit better up here. And
Gotcha.
Strength is great. Endurance is also wonderful too. Because think about, here's two scenarios here. I smile because it's a dear friend of mine. Powerlifter. Unbelievable numbers. Bench, squat, deadlift. You'd look at this person and say, oh, your glutes and your core are so strong. Okay? Endurance and timing of when certain muscles fire is very important as well. This individual, and I smile because of the person, not because they injured themselves after a training session. Bench, squat, deadlift day. Crazy numbers. Walk outside, step off the curb, sprains their ankle.
No.
Yes. So, some of the strongest glutes I've ever seen, but they're falling, ankle rolls, then glutes fire. Still sprain my ankle. What if, and they fire? my hip stabilizes my knee and my ankle, I walk away unscathed, right? What if my glutes are firing, my abs are firing, I've done 14 deadlifts, by the 15th, they can't work as efficiently anymore. Buckles a little bit, there's my injury or potential injury. How could I have mitigated that? Working endurance of these stabilizing muscles, not just strength of them, but endurance too. So then in your warm-up, you're doing your bridges. Maybe you're doing a little bit of isometric holds too. Maybe you're going up at the top and holding for a couple seconds. Then you go back down, as opposed to just boom, 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 reps, right? Because think of, I'm not a runner. You're probably not a runner either, are you?
No.
You don't look like a runner.
No,
No offense.
Don't jog.
You're a big dude. Actually, well, some of my friends are massive and they're great runners. So my apologies to my certain friends if they're listening. I could probably run a mile. After a mile, see ya. Calves are going to start hurting. Everything's going to start hurting. I would consider my calves pretty strong, but after a mile, they're out. So then all these other things are happening. Lactic acid's building up in them. They don't feel good. So do I stop running? No. Do I keep strengthening my calves? I'd like to, but I need to also work endurance of them. You see what I mean? So that's important too. But with powerlifting, a lot of times I'll see folks, maybe 50-50, getting hurt on their PR attempt, and maybe 50% will get injured on their accessory work. Because with powerlifters, my goal is I only have to do it once on the platform, right? So when I start programming for myself 20 reps of dumbbell press after I've heavy benched, these are super strong, but 8, 9, 10, all of a sudden other things start taking over. These aren't able to work as optimally, and now they're more susceptible to injury. So it's interesting. It's all about the goal that you have, right? Bodybuilders, they're doing more reps, things like that, a little bit better endurance from time to time.
This is why I always say that free weights are valuable for a certain reason. And this is also why I say Athlete Next created this one. I don't want to create controversy here, but Athlete Next created this one video way back when he's like, stop doing these. And he was talking about dumbbell flies. However, when I think about the science behind keeping, your body strong and all its supporters and things like knees over toes guy, I think when you're doing the dumbbell fly, it's actually very valuable to put your body under tension at its most stretched position for your pecs. Just make sure to do light enough weight so you don't tear yourself up.
Do it right.
Right.
I personally, and Jeff is his name, Jeff Cavalier. He has wonderful stuff, by the way. Keep in mind, a lot of stuff that you're seeing on the internet, if you want it to be seen, you have to have some kind of punchline.
I think this was also an old video, though.
Right. So
back before, don't do knees over toes and stuff like that.
Right. So I personally like flies. Am I a bodybuilder? No way. But why do I like them? Because my goal now is to serve my patients as best as possible and become the best jiu-jitsu practitioner that I can. So when I'm doing ART, a lot of times, like on you, I'm doing one where I'm holding one thing this way and moving something else the other way. You're a big dude. I've got to use a lot of oomph. So I think chest flies help me to create a lot of tension going like this. I love them. I think they help me in my career. With jiu-jitsu, as my technique comes, I'm using a lot of strength as technique comes, right? But I've found myself not submitting to arm bars fast because I can create a lot of coming this way or enough to hold that there so I don't get my joint locked like this, because that's when it really hurts and that's when I would tap. So they personally have served me very well. So again, it's goal specific, right? If I'm
right.
trying to think of an example where
I think one valuable example I could think of is I don't remember which basketball players, but top basketball players will practice a squat that's barely any depth, but just for that explosive jump.
Great topic. Great thing you said. You remember Muggsy Bogues, the dunk champion? He was my height. He was like 5'6". He was a guy like that too. And again, things according to your goals. Muggsy had extremely tight hamstrings, but they were also what would help him build up so much elastic energy that he could boom off 1 foot and dunk. I can't even touch the net at 5'6". So to the power of him creating so much going up, right? So again, to your goals, his squats, he's not squatting down and then ass to grass and then jumping up to dunk a basketball.
Right.
He's only got he's boom up, right? So when they're training, that could be their logic as to why. Fit it for your sport, right? Fit it for your goal. Bodybuilders, their goal, hypertrophy usually. Awesome. Fit your stuff to it, right? You want to go forward like this? Awesome.
I'm just thinking about all those times that I decided to go a little bit further on my PR, and that's why I ripped myself up.
And then
not because I didn't want to put,
What so then give some examples, like your PR for dumbbell press. Gotcha.
Yeah.
What else?
Or like back in college when I would PR for in bench press, I think I wasn't paying close enough attention to retracting my scapula, bringing those shoulder blades back. So I would overcompensate with my front delts by widening my grip and then trying to push up with my shoulders, right? Which would help the bar go up. But then in those few times that I injured myself was probably the reason why I injured myself, or is exactly the reason why I injured myself.
I'm not laughing at your injury. I'm laughing at you going back and saying that's exactly why I injured myself.
Yeah.
The body takes the path of least resistance always. So it's always thinking task completion, the body. So if I'm like this and eventually my body rounds forward, my brain is not going to let me talk to your knee. But instead of me doing this, I can just tilt my head up like that. Not the greatest for my neck, but I'll do it. Path of least resistance. It's easiest for me to just do this and have a conversation with you as opposed to, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should engage XYZ. Maybe I should stop breathing and start breathing through my diaphragm. That takes a lot of work.
Nobody ever wants to talk about, everybody wants to talk about how you should breathe in and then breathe out during each rep, but it's rarely ever talked about that holding in your breath, if you can hold it without passing out during a heavy rep, is going to help support your core in order for you to lift more weight. Yeah.
This example.
Right. Your soda cans example.
They say at the top, if I'm a power lifter, they say to sit in some air, I'm increasing pressure in my abdomen. If I just like this, think about
less stability.
Yeah, think about that spine study, where if I increase the intra-abdominal pressure, I've got my obliques, rectus abdominis, I've got everything ready to stabilize my spine. If I don't, think about that study. There's only 26 pounds of compressive force, snapped in half. So breathing is very important. Very important. It's not the most intriguing thing to talk about. Which is why I think that's why it gets negated. But I see most people that I see on social media do a pretty good job, at least with their breathing patterns. Whether it's powerlifter just at the top of a rep, or just bodybuilder breathing, it's even even the grunting and things like that can be used as a tool. Like a lot of, when Ronnie Coleman would let out those big like boo, that creates intra-abdominal pressure too. Think of the tennis players when they
Yep. Yeah.
that way of doing that increases the pressure in the abdomen, which is really interesting. Really interesting. So breathing's important.
Thanks for being on the podcast,
man. Thanks for having me.
That was dope. Is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to talk about before we leave?
Oh no, just
where can we find you?
Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. If I can be of help to you of any way, you can look on my Instagram. If you want to message me there, or my email is on my Instagram if I can help in any way.
Nice, awesome. And what is it again? It's Dr.
dr.michael.DellaCorte is my
DellaCorte.
Instagram and TikTok.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks again for having me, Niall.
Yeah, thanks for being on. That was super great.
My pleasure, man.
Mm-hmm. And then also, if you guys want to help support the podcast through a cost-free way, then please rate us at 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and it would mean the absolute world. And thanks again for watching, guys.
Thanks for having me, Niall.